Good afternoon, guys. It's Working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. We're looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar. This is the 1 week chart, and I want to start off with the bigger picture, guys, just to kind of give you an overview again to remind you guys that we are still obviously in this bearish trend. That being said, we are starting to test the resistance area, guys, and I do think we're getting to a point to where we're going to see a larger move come. I don't just mean on the smaller time frames; I mean on the larger time frames here in the next month or so. If we come over here, guys, looking at, I showed you guys this last time, looking at the weekly, we have this descending resistance line that we have that we're starting to come up on now. This could signal, we know that volume is still remaining fairly strong, at least compared to where it was a month ago, sitting at about 9.2 billion on the day. That is a nice uptick from where we were 4 or 5 weeks ago. And so if we can break above this descending resistance line with a lot of volume behind it, guys, and get this decisive break above, I do think that's going to be a very, very good sign. If, on the other hand, we just kind of wick above it here and get a strong rejection, and then price could very likely end up breaking down and coming into our support area between 3,000 and 2,500. I do think we're getting to that critical point here, guys, to where one or the other is going to happen. And it's no surprise, in my opinion, it's no surprise that this descending resistance line lines up perfectly with that with this area of support that we've been watching right here, right around on Coinbase. It's right around 4120. We can see that we've hit this zone numerous times, guys, and been unable to break above it decisively. We've wicked above it, but unable to decisively break above it. And we can see that we're approaching that that area of resistance. In fact, if I kind of lower the area there, actually it's more there. That's more accurate. We can see that that we've wicked above it here, but the body of the candles have decisively broken above it. Have not decisively broken above it ever since price ended up crashing down here and dropping below that level, at least on the weekly. Wicked above it, but not broken above. So a decisive break above that zone would not be insignificant. That being said, we can also see a decisive rejection, a strong rejection, I should say. And if that does happen, we have this, what I pointed out here, this bear flag here that's been a very clear looking bear flag. And the target of that bear flag would be somewhere between 3,000 and 2,500. Excuse me. All right, zooming in on the weekly chart, looking at our moving averages, exponential moving averages, and Bollinger Bands here, guys. We can see the 200-day moving average on the weekly chart has acted as a very, very strong support, guys. Ever since we had this breakdown, it smacked into this zone here, guys, bottomed out and tested this support 1, 2, 3 weeks in a row before finally taking off, coming back down, testing it 2 weeks in a row, and then coming back out to where we are today. So we do have some solid support down here. That would be sitting somewhere around 3450-ish, somewhere thereabouts. That breaks down, guys, and watch out below. That breaks down, there's a very good chance we're coming down to at least 3,000, if not 2,500, I do believe, in my opinion. To the upside, guys, we can see that we're currently hitting some resistance right at the 20-day moving average on the weekly chart. And, of course, that the 21-day EMA is sitting right above that, guys. Both should act as very strong resistance. So that being said, a break above those would not be insignificant, especially a break above the 21-day EMA on the weekly chart, guys. If that does happen, guys, in my opinion, especially if we can get a weekly candle closing above that zone, would be a very, very bullish sign. We also can see that if we kind of zoom out a little bit, we can see that the Bollinger Bands are starting to constrict rather significantly. In fact, they're almost heading right towards each other, almost like playing a game of chicken here. The last time we saw Bollinger Bands constrict rather tightly was right here, and that's when we broke down from that 6,000 area. We finally broke support. And of course, we're starting to see that now, not nearly as constricted as they were, but again, they're moving towards each other fast. And typically, the tighter the Bollinger Bands get, the larger the move. It suggests a larger move to come, guys. So we're watching those Bollinger Bands starting to tighten. And again, all things suggesting on the bigger picture in the next month or so, we should get a much larger move. All right, zooming back in on the daily chart, guys, we can see the daily chart is looking, in my opinion, it's starting to look rather bullish, and it does look like, obviously, like it's also getting ready to move here. We're testing this resistance area between 4,000 and 4,120. Obviously, this is the very strong resistance zone on Coinbase that I've been talking about for so long. Again, it'll be a little bit higher on Bitfinex depending on your exchange, but we're testing very strong resistance, guys, and we can see that we've had a series of higher lows. We can also see that we have a kind of this decent uptrend line right here that's been respected so far, and looks like it should provide some support if price does end up breaking down here in the short term. But again, zooming in here, guys, We've been testing resistance here at 4,000 on the daily chart for 4 days now, unable to really decisively break into that zone. We've wicked into it, but we haven't really broken into that zone decisively. We have yet to have a daily candle close into that zone, guys. So it does, every time you test a resistance, or support or resistance, in this case resistance though, guys, every time you test it, that resistance gets weaker and weaker. It does look poised to me to test this resistance to end up breaking up. In fact, if I zoom in here to the 4-hour, we can see that we have this kind of a miniature bull flag, if you will, that's forming here, a series of lower highs, higher lows, all approaching an apex here and suggesting a possible break up. And if it does break up, I'm going to be watching for testing here this 4120 zone. Of course, if we can decisively break above 4120, guys, that'd be a very bullish sign. But I do think this is going to act as a very strong resistance, so I can see a scenario where price breaks up out of here, possibly a bull trap, possibly trapping people long. We wick into this zone, hit 4120, possibly even wick higher than that, and then a strong rejection, and then price breaks down from there. In fact, I'll be watching this very closely. If we break into this zone, guys, depending on how longs and shorts look, if we break into this zone and shorts are getting liquidated, longs are stacking, and volume is lackluster, I'll absolutely consider a short here at 4120. And if, on the other hand, we break into this zone and a lot of volume is backing it, and shorts are stacking and longs are just kind of stagnant or whatnot, I'll absolutely consider entering into a long position. So it's going to be very, very telling to see how price reacts if it does break up, how it reacts if it does, how it reacts when it does break up, I should say. To the downside, guys, we're going to be watching 3,900. I'll be watching 3,900. We can see 3,900 should act as a strong support. It acted as, once we broke above it back here, it was a very strong support here for quite a few days until it finally did end up breaking down. Once it broke down, it acted as a very strong resistance for quite a long time, testing it numerous times, and then we just recently finally broke back above it, came back down, tested it, acted as support, and then we broke back up. So I'd be watching this area. If we do break down 3,900, I'll be watching for a retest to see if it does act as support. If 3,900 does act as support, it'd be an extremely bullish sign, and in fact, I may even consider buying a little bit here at 3,900, possibly wicking down to 3,850 into this zone, targeting 4,000. We'll have to wait and see kind of how this ends up playing out, guys. But if 3,900 breaks down decisively, not by a wick, but if we have a daily candle opening and closing below 3,900, at that point, I'm going to start to get very bearish in my analysis. As of right now, guys, I'm leaning towards a temporary, at least a temporary breakup, but I'm going to be watching 4120 as a very strong resistance to see if we can break above that. If we break above 4120 decisively, by decisively I mean a daily candle opening and closing above 4120, at that point, my analysis will get very, very bullish. And doesn't necessarily mean we have seen bottom, but I'll start to believe that's a possibility if we can get that decisive break above 4120. Now, it's not just the bull flag and the volume backing this, guys, that's making me think that this thing may come up and at least temporarily break up to 4120 here. I'm also, if we kind of zoom in here on the 4-hour chart, we look at our MACD. Going all the way back, I mean, I can go all the way back and show you numerous examples, but just looking recently, if we look at our price points here and we go, pardon me, guys. All right, sorry about that. I need a drink of water. So if we look at our price points here, guys, since we had this move, the MACD has been warning us every time we've had a break up. So we had this break up here, and then price ended up consolidating here, correcting back down just a little bit. So if we go swing low, swing high, sorry guys, not swing low, swing high. If we go from our swing low here to this to the next consolidation point here, we can see obviously price created a higher low. Obviously. If we look down here at the exact same point on the MACD, what do we have? We can see that price created, not price, but the MACD, the MACD here created the histogram created a lower low. Okay, so that's obvious divergence. In this case, we're looking at an uptrend. We're looking at the bottom of the MACD, so that's going to be hidden divergence, and in this case, hidden bullish divergence. So we had this hidden bullish divergence, and what happened shortly afterwards? We had that nice little break up. What happened right after that? Well, again, price created what? If we go from that point to this point here, price created a higher low. After consolidating here, created a higher low. We look at the MACD at the exact same point. What happened? The MACD created a lower low. Histogram created a lower low. What happened shortly after that? Price broke up here and tested our resistance area. So we had this nice little break up here. Okay, so we can fast forward here a little bit. Of course, then we hit resistance. Price ended up breaking down. MACD wasn't showing us anything. And then we come over here, guys, and what do we have? Finally, price comes back down. We're looking for a divergence. What do we see? Price wicks down in here, hits that ascending support line, and then comes back down here again and creates another low. So point to point, price created a higher low. Looking at the MACD, looking at our histogram at the exact same points, histogram creates a lower low. Again, hidden bullish divergence, suggesting price is going to break up. And sure enough, what happens? Price ends up breaking up right here. Okay, fast forward again just a little bit. What do we have? I mean, there's numerous examples. Happens again here. Creates a lower low. What do we happen here on the MACD? Price creates a higher low. MACD creates a lower low. And then, of course, we had, once again, another break up in price. And I'm pointing this out, guys, to say, what are we seeing right now? Right now on price, we're seeing our, this is our swing low coming up here. Price creates a higher low. Once again, looking at the MACD, the exact same point. What do we have? MACD is creating a lower low again, hidden bullish divergence, and this is suggesting that break up. If the pattern is any history here, or if history is any guide, I should say, this is suggesting hidden bullish divergence for a nice little break up in price. Now, again, this is only on the 4 hours, so that's why I'm saying I think we're going to come up, possibly test resistance area here at 4120, and that'll be anybody's guess whether or not that resistance is going to hold. But I do think we have the volume right now to possibly break through it. But remember, guys, on the weekly chart, that's also that same area where that descending resistance line on the larger weekly chart is going to hit. So there's a lot of resistance, obviously, as we've been talking about for the last few weeks, actually the last month or so. Just that massive area of resistance that we have right there at that 4120 zone on Coinbase. So it is going to take a whole lot to break through that. Might this be the time that happens? Yeah, that's real possible. Or we could get a very strong rejection and price just ends up breaking down. And again, I know it's frustrating to hear. It could go up, could go down. It'd be much easier for me to just pick a side and tell you that it's going to do that's going one way or another. Especially if I tell you it's going to break up, it'd give me a lot more clicks. But to be honest with you guys, yes, I think a temporary breakup looks likely. Whether or not that continues is going to be whether or not we can break above 4120. This might be a great area to short. In fact, I think a lot of people are shorting this area, which is why I am really, my gut is leaning towards a break above 4120, just because so many people expect a strong rejection off that zone. And speaking of that, looking at shorts are continuing to stack, guys. People have been, retail's been expecting this thing to break down for quite some time. Coming over here, looking at longs are finally starting to show a little bit of life. Just a little bit here. They're not nearly stacking at the pace shorts are, but they are showing a little bit of life here, guys, which, again, it would start to favor a possible, if that does continue, I should say, if that does continue. If longs continue to stack here, guys, I think the probability of a breakout becomes less and less. However, if longs just kind of stay stagnant, or if this is it, if this is all they're going to do, and they kind of move sideways from here while shorts continue to stack, I think there's a very good chance that the lid gets blown off and price just crashes above 4120. But that being said, guys, it's really going to be a matter of what happens if and when price does break up above and test 4120. All right, quickly coming over and looking at the 4-hour chart, checking out the Bollinger Bands, guys. We can see Bollinger Bands are starting to constrict here rather tight. Again, that does suggest a larger move to come, larger as relative to the time frame. We are looking at 4 hours, so that larger move, again, might just be that break up above to that 4120, but it is suggesting price is getting ready to move with the bottlenecking of these Bollinger Bands here on the smaller time frame on the 4-hour chart. So the bottom line, how am I going to play this, guys? If we do break up above this zone, we test 4120, and if we hit this zone and shorts are continuing to stack, we hit this zone with short stacking and longs basically lackluster with very little volume. I will, if that does happen, guys, I will very likely, with a lot of volume, short stacking with a lot of volume, I will very likely just go long, add to my long position here, and just and go long, expecting the lid to get blown off. That being said, if we do break up here and shorts start to get liquidated as we're breaking up, and longs start to stack, and volume is lackluster, at that point I'm not gonna. At that point, I'll very likely end up shorting this thing. As at that point, I think probability will absolutely favor a short, and at least coming down and testing 39, at least 3,900, if not 3,800. So it's all going to depend on how, if price breaks up, on what volume looks like, what shorts look like, and just the degree, the severity of the breakout. To the downside, guys, I'm going to be watching, as I said, 3,900 very closely, expecting 3,900 to hold. If it does hold, if we get a nice breakdown, we hit 3,900, we get a strong bounce off that 3,900, be a very bullish sign. I would like to see 3,900 tested again, because since we broke above it, guys, as we said here, for the last 3 days, we really haven't tested. I'd like to see a retest of 3,900 and a very strong bounce off that 3,900. If that does happen, guys, again, I think that could just give us the momentum that we need to bust the lid off of this thing. We'll have to wait and see how this ends up playing out. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there, guys. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote if you have enjoyed this content. Till next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Working. Signing out.